I Touch Roses from Book of Love on Revenge of the 80s Radio. With me is Susan Ottaviano from the band. Welcome to Revenge of the 80s Radio, Susan.
Hi, how you doing?
Excellent, and I'm very happy you joined us today. You're going to be around our area soon. We're going to talk about that, too. But I want to start from the beginning. You began in Philadelphia, Susan, and later moved on to New York City. How did the band form?
Well, actually, I was in a band in Philadelphia, and then when we moved to New York, Jade and I, we started Book of Love with Ted.
Now, here's the question. I'm Italian, and Cordani's not that popular of a name, and nor is Ottaviano. Yet, you and Tim aren't related.
It's kind of a strange story, but we're from the same hometown, so we're probably cousins. But our legend lives on because we've been together for, it's like 35 years, so our common name is still kind of funny sometimes.
Fair enough. I'd like to say I'm related to those really rich shoe people in Italy, but I'm pretty sure my Cordanis are the different Cordanis.
Yeah, that's what they say. There's a town in Italy called Ottaviano.
Who are your early influences, locally and worldwide?
Well, I think that we were we were first introduced to the way we got started is we were fans and we used to go to clubs to see bands. We saw the Ramones, we saw the Talking Heads, we saw everybody at that time, The Cure, a lot of local bands like Bush Tetras and people playing on the more like the East Coast scene, but then bands from California and from Europe, and so we were part of the punk and the post-punk scene, and that's sort of how we got. The Ramones are a big influence, and a lot of stuff during that time period. Also stuff from the '60s and girl groups and things like that. Bubblegum. And
you don't sound like a lot of those bands. That's the interesting point. But in the early to mid-'80s, there were several new niches and sounds, bands and artists that have brought something new to the table with different things. Yours was interesting in many ways because it was a bit dark, a little bit dancey, but many times taking on some intriguing topics. How did you and the band develop your identity, Susan?
Well, I think basically we just tried to develop our own voice and make music that we liked, and hopefully that other people would relate to it. So I think that that's what we were really doing, and if a lot of the topics were timely, it was because that was our life. We lived in New York. We lived on the Lower East Side. We were experiencing, life in New York during the 80s. That's what, right now there's been talk again about that one of our songs was one of the early songs to address the AIDS crisis, but for us, that's what was going on in our lives. So
it's interesting you mentioned that, Susan, because the song Pretty Boys and Pretty Girls did tackle the AIDS issue when a lot of people really didn't know much about it.
Yes, and I think that we definitely didn't get a lot of encouragement about, kind of pushing that point at the time. It was 88, which seems a little late for that, but there was definitely something going on in our lives, and we lived in New York, and that's what we talked about.
Well, what inspired you to write and record a song about something that really people did talk about it, at least they just started. It was something that people didn't...
part of our lives. In 88, living in New York City.
Yeah.
It certainly wasn't an unknown topic.
And it wasn't long after Ricky Wilson of the B-52s passed away from AIDS complications.
Yeah, we were interviewing the producer, Tony Mansfield, had just worked on the record. We introduced him. We were talking to him about possibly producing our second album, and Ricky had just died. So that's the album that we're talking about, actually, I think. Or maybe it was our third. I don't remember exactly.
But bringing up those issues was part of what the band was all about.
Totally. I mean, we were an art school band. Our influences were, at the time, I didn't know that a lot of bands, came from art school, but that was our breeding ground, and going to clubs and seeing the music and being in New York. So for us, those were, front and center topics and something that we were dealing with at that time.
And Book of Love, how did you come up with the name for the band?
I think we were just kind of, it's not such a profound thing. I think we were just kind of kicking around some ideas, and I think that one of the things that is kind of very 80s is this sort of romantic kind of imagery, and I think that was one of our choices, and it is the name of a song, but I don't think that Book of Love by the Monotones is our favorite song, but it kind of evokes a certain kind of romantic sound.
Another fun Philadelphia fact, Susan, another band from the city of brotherly love, the Dead Milkmen, mentioned Book of Love in their song Instant Club Hit.
Right. That was, I guess they probably thought we were an English band at the time, because I think it was all the other English bands. I never knew them when I lived there, so I guess that's moving into like the later 80s or something like that. But yeah, I guess they mentioned us in that song.
It was pretty funny because, as you mentioned, you were the only band that wasn't out of Europe. Anyway.
Well, I think we toured with a lot of English bands, and I think we had a bit of an identity crisis because, you're asking me some questions about the 80s, and one of the things you're saying something about, like, our influences don't really sound like our music. I think that early on, people were a little bit more open to we'd see the Ramones one night, and we'd see The Cure another night, and we'd see, Spandau Ballet another night. It was a little bit more eclectic, and it wasn't so genre driven. And I think that's sort of, what we sort of the scene that we came out of. And then things got a little bit more like, we became like under this synth pop band heading. And I never thought that necessarily fit us.
Part of that is because a lot of your hits were remixed and sent to the dance floors, but also you had the big break of opening up for Depeche Mode in the mid-'80s.
Right.
That was a pretty big deal, I suppose.
It was. We had never really performed for more than like 100 people, so it was definitely a big deal. We sort of had to learn as we went, learn in front of people, so it was quite the experience.
Your singles Boy and I Touch Roses caught the attention of Sire record executives during that time. You soon recorded your first album after that.
Well, I think we just, it was just one song after another. We got signed with Boy, we went on tour with Depeche Mode, and Boy became a big dance hit. And also, when you talk about remixes and dance hits, during that time period, the only exposure that bands like us could ever have is on the dance floor or on the dance charts. They were not playing that in top 40 radio. So that was the place that you would hear songs like that, hear alternative new wave things. So that's sort of where the dance floors where people heard our music. And then we did I Touch Roses, I guess, and then we got an album deal, and then we did the first album, and then we did another Depeche Mode tour.
With me is Susan Ottaviano of Book of Love. Straight ahead, we'll talk about what the band is doing today, some upcoming shows, and creating new music. All on Revenge of the 80s Radio. Boy from Book of Love on Revenge of the 80s Radio. Susan Ottaviano is on the air with me now. She's the lead singer. Susan, some of your classics have won new audiences since the turn of the century. What do you think of your music of the 80s and 90s still being heard amongst young people and continued to be played and listened to by your longtime fans?
Well, I think it's great. I mean, I think that music is sort of, it's kind of cyclical, and it's kind of coming around, and I think some of these some of the contemporary music right now is sounding really good with the 80s songs.
Book of Love reformed again quite recently, like many bands have. The four of you in one way or another did some projects together over the years, but in 2009 you re-released the catalog.
Yes, we did they re-released and remastered all of our entire catalog, and also with our original, it was like the 25th year anniversary of Boy, I believe. And we have this bonus disc, and the bonus disc has like all of our original demos, which are some a little scary to listen to, but a few, like this Christmas tune that we did, and a few other things that were unreleased. So we got together to do that, and we did a bunch of shows, and we thought that was the end, but I guess it wasn't. So then in like, what year is this? 2013. Our manager got us back together, and we started to do some shows, and we enjoyed it, and we enjoyed working together. And that's where we are right now. We're working on a new album, and it's exciting. It's fun to revisit it.
What brought you back together?
Well, I think that the fact that we did these shows and we started to think of, I think the timing is better. I think in 2009 and in 2001, I think we were a little early on the whole like 80s thing. And in 2009, I think our heart was sort of in a different place. And this time, I think that, Ted and I really came together with wanting to try to do this again, and sort of very excited about writing new material and carrying on.
On a side, Susan, you did mention to me off-air that Ted was working on another project that had some pretty interesting and beautiful music. Yes,
Ted's project, The Myrmidons, is really beautiful, and it's definitely, you should listen to it. You should play it on your radio, on your show.
Well, of course we will.
He has a couple of discs out, and Ted's continued to do a lot of production and work with other artists as well.
Sounds like a cunning plan. Talk about touring again from your point of view, because Book of Love has been on the road again since the Reformation. What are some things that you see as similar and different from when you played live in the 80s and 90s?
It all seems to come right back. It's all the same sort of... It's very similar in a lot of ways. It's different touring when you're a little older. I mean, it's different than it was when I was 22 years old and we were game to just go all around the world and have nothing else to do. I think that's definitely different. We all have our own lives, and it's a little bit more difficult. But it's a great opportunity to be able to, we have this catalog of songs, and it's a real pleasure for me to be able to sing them again and to be able to have the opportunity to perform again.
And in these days, you probably see a lot more flashes from people's cell phones, unfortunately, taking pictures.
Oh, my God. I just wish they would have taken all these pictures of me when I was 22, because it's like, you do a show now, and everything is up the next day. I mean, it's totally different. You finish a tour, and you get a few pictures from fans, of some shows and everything, and now it's just like the next day. It's all, in your face, unedited. So that's kind of, I would definitely say, it's interesting you brought that up, because that's the thing I think is the most different about today. There's no hiding. This show is not good. I screw up on the second verse. It's on a YouTube video tomorrow.
But the thing is, your fans still love it no matter what happens.
Yeah, that's what they say.
What are some of your favorite cities and venues that you've performed in?
Well, we were just in San Francisco. I've always loved playing in San Francisco, New Orleans, a lot of different places, depending on what things we've done. We've done a lot of tours in the Texas area, a lot of West Coast cities we've enjoyed. We enjoyed Chicago. Chicago's great, and a lot of places in the Midwest. I think we have a lot of places that I enjoy doing. We played in Europe with Depeche Mode a lot, and those were some really, big theaters and stuff, so that was a great experience.
Our Northeastern audience will be happy to know you'll be playing at the Bowery Ballroom on January 26th, and just before that, at Philadelphia's World Cafe, January 23rd.
We're real excited about those shows, and the Bowery Ballroom is really a hometown show for us. We're excited to be back there. We lived right next to the Bowery Ballroom for many years, and it's a great venue, and we're really excited to be there.
Book of Love back on tour, but also back in the studio. I understand you're working on new music.
Yes, we are. We're probably going to play at least one, maybe two of the new songs at the show this month, and we're kind of working on an album right now, so it's exciting.
It's always fun to get the new music out there. You played a couple of tracks at past shows this year. Talk about the response.
I think the response has been great. I mean, the response has been great from, our core audience, and like you said, people who knew us from back in the day, and the people who've been turned on to the music, from that point to today. I mean, we have, fans that, were introduced to the music a little bit more during the 90s and times like that. So it's great to see, we saw a lot of our friends on the road in California. It was just great to see them. They're amazing, and just so much support. I can't tell you.
Susan, tease us a bit. What might we expect in this album? What are we going to hear? Maybe some classic Book of Love sound, or maybe something that could surprise your longtime fans?
Hopefully all of those. I think we're just trying to write the best Book of Love songs that we can. I think it's a good time for us, and we're excited, to be working again.
Susan, thank you for coming on Revenge of the 80s Radio with me.
Thank you so much for having me. I look forward to coming to the show.
I look forward to going to see you at the Bowery as well. You can catch up with Susan Ottaviano and Book of Love on their website, bookoflovemusic.com. That's bookoflovemusic.com. You can find out more also on our website, revengeofthe80sradio.com. Let's play another track from Book of Love. Actually, since the holidays are up, let's play your 2009 Christmas track, We Three Kings, on Revenge of the 80s Radio.